Doing from exponential potential to not being able to pay for the rental or even a bill from the dental. Now how's that for your mental? I've been through hard times too. The situation demand I bring the hard rhymes through. That's why I'm all times too.
Hey, I'm doing a giveaway. Stay tuned for Games of the Week and learn about the small and charming pile of indie games I just got that could all soon be yours.
Technique for party crashes, liquor spilling mayhem. Punk cops to play them, super bitches to slay them. It's all serious biz, no time remains for the cattle defecation. You spitting right in the spraying, what the
So I thought I'd made up good play on words when I saw Tony's Chocolonely bars wink at me en route to the self-checkout. You see, I'd never paid close attention to how the name of the product is spelled. I always thought it was Tony's Chocolonely, which sounded playful and correct, and I made up a riff in my head about Tony's Chocolonely, what I thought was a fictitious special Valentine's Day package that was just a single square of chocolate with a creamy fentanyl center. The inside of the wrapper even had a little space to write a suicide haiku. But then I find out the dang product is already called Chocolonely, which to me is a huge missed V-Day marketing opportunity for the company. I'd probably buy 6 of those things because I have a pretty high tolerance and I know I'd want to draft more than one haiku. Hell, it's the 15th now, so they'd probably be in the clearance bin, where most great romances start and finish. Welcome to episode 110 of Breakup Gaming Society, a podcast about solo life, played slowly and told well. I'm your host, the Colonel Hector Bravado in Starkville, Colorado. There was a light rain last night that smelled just like a spring rain. The local insect population is befuddled. Nobody knows how to feel about any of it. Fortunately, we've got some stuff to look forward to. Games of the Week. Let's celebrate indie game makers with a giveaway. In the past few months, I've acquired creations from The Seahorse and the Hummingbird, Grumpy Spider Games, Longtail Games, and Ada Games. I'm giving them all away. Learn about these games and listen up for how the contest works. After that, my retrospective of Fantasy Flight Games' Golden Age continues with Tannhäuser, a 5-on-5 skirmish game set in a uchronic universe where World War I has dragged all the way to 1949. The Kaiser has turned to the occult to win it all. The Union has reverse-engineered flash weapons from the Roswell crash at the behest of President Thomas Edison. It was never a hit, but it was beautifully realized, and it utterly lit up many an afternoon in our old house. Track of the Week. Chief among the minor thrills of sample chasing is finding a source song through organic exploration without having to look it up. I'm going to play you a big beat banger from the 90s by Death in Vegas and follow the clues back to Queensbridge and the one and only Roxanne Shanté. So let's dive into Games of the Week. I've designed a contest so breathtakingly easy to enter, even you can manage it. Can you type a word? Can you send an email? Then you can win. Here we go.
Bitch, I kicked it, yup, I kicked it, come on, you couldn't bang with this if your name was Genghis Khan.
Draw in close, children, and pay attention to these indie tabletop creations because one of you is going to own them all. I do not have enough life left or wind in my lungs to play and talk about all the inspired indie design work that crosses my feed every day, especially from small designers who put a high level of verve or craft in their work. I can't play them all, but nothing's stopping me from just buying the fucking things whenever I've got a spare $20 or so, and celebrating their makers as I'm able. In the last few months, I've acquired a small pile of pretty cool indie creations, and I'm giving them all away. Listen to the end of this segment to learn how it all works. Here's what's up for grabs. The Seahorse and the Hummingbird's Book of Wandering, written by Jason Katzwinkle and edited by David Kessler. This is a magic book whose spell only works if you surrender control of the artifact. Did you ever hear the story of Hitchbot, the wandering robot whose simple instructions let it hitchhike, getting passed from person to person? Around about 2015, Hitchbot made it across parts of Europe and Canada. The U.S. leg of its tour proved fatal. I think it used its luck getting through Boston because Philly was the end of the line for that poor little motherfucker. The Book of Wandering applies the same concept in a lower-risk vehicle, a handsome bound booklet whose simple directive is to fill a page with something that gives you joy, then pass it along. You can opt to give it a one-way ticket or put your return address on the back cover in hopes of peering into the hearts of people to whom it stuck, however briefly. I've released 2 of these books into the wild. The feeling of trying to imagine whose hands it would pass through, what they would feel, what they would write, opened up underutilized circuits in my mind and heart. Read the intro text as the book speaks to you, announcing your temporary bond. Tell me you don't feel a bit of parasocial electricity. Tell me you don't start mapping imagined pinpoints of people, some kind of plane of the world that you can sense but not quite see. It's simple but effective wizardry via shared, semi-collaborative, quasi-randomized journaling. This power I will hand to the winner of this contest. Next on the pile, another small game title that outdoes its niche for presentation and craftsmanship, Grumpy Spider Games' Rucksack. I bought a copy of Rucksack because I've always been impressed by the shelf-ready gleam that David, and his collaborators achieve with these games. In episode 73, I featured Grumpy Spider's Pocketbook Adventures, a ring-bound solo dungeon crawler with a nifty pencil dexterity skill check. David told me he designed Rucksack just for the casuals in your life who would enjoy games in the vein of Balderdash, Funemployed, Snake Oil, or Apples to Apples. Very accessible. In Rucksack, players are thrown into survival scenarios with random collections of items that may or may not be useful. You must ingeniously pitch your fellow players about why these items will help you endure, with a voting system determining who's the best pretend survivalist. Into the prize bag it goes. The next prize is Longtail Games' Tiny Tome 2. Many years ago, I got exceedingly curious about how vibrant and experimental the indie tabletop role-playing scene had become. That curiosity led me to buy Longtail Games' Tiny Tome 1, which had 50 playable RPGs, all on standard poker cards and curated by Longtail from designers across the world. The range of concepts on these things was extremely broad, and that was its strength. I used to fan through them and read them at night, just savoring the tingle of standing at all those thresholds. Mini dungeon crawlers, wry social games, conceptual journaling stuff, games where the card itself becomes the dice that got you to explore your surroundings. Now there's Tiny Tome 2, and I have it, except this time it's a book where each submission, compiled by Longtail's Ash Houndschild, has its own spread so the creators could include more detail. Now let's flip to a couple pages here. You've got Yap by Francis Diedrich. In Yap, you're going to trace a character's journey only as glimpsed through their online reviews and snapshot their travails and triumphs as you're sent place to place. You can also look forward to Compact by Levi Cornelson. So players of Compact and their guide, that's the GM of this game, will tease out the tough particulars of how a specialized social order sorts out against the backdrop of the characters' backstories and the purpose of the group, which can be a brigade, a cotter, a caravan, a crew, a college, a society, or a troupe of performers. Fictional conditions from the guide's imagination will help the players imagine the historical or regional forces at work as they try to achieve unity. Let's look back here. Oh yeah, look at this. Coriolan by Alexander Nashaj. Now, this is simply billed as cassette futurism sci-fi horror. All these words are arousing to me. These are just 3 of the 47 games or supplements in this book. You could spend the rest of your life flipping around in this toy box. We also have 3 prizes from Ada Press. The first is D6 Things This Dog Will Tell You. The second is Othership, and the third is The Taming of the Slug Giraffe. Now, these are all on the virtual pile. Christopher John Eggett and his pressmate Mary McGrory make, in their words, stupid little games. Our winner gets an itch key that unlocks all 3. Let's take a look at each. D6 Things This Dog Will Tell You. The first is as advertised. You can treat it as a lark or a cool mission backstory generator. Roll a D6. The pictured dog says something. Run with the animal's scene-setting chops if that's what you're feeling. Next is Othership. So Othership is a forlorn space Hulk sci-fi horror affair where you're raiding alien vessels for loot. This game first appeared in Weird Science magazine. As the FAQ puts it, when asked if this is a purposeful truncation of the Mothership game, it answers, and I quote, "Exactly. Mothership is famous for how complicated it is, so I thought I would simplify it for fun and to save paper. This is an approximately 99% optimization on Mothership. Additionally, we're using less dice with smaller numbers, which I am led to believe is good for the environment," end quote. There you go. Compact, dangerous, and wry. The last one is Taming of the Slug Giraffe. In this game, you're a giblet, a creature that must venture into a yawning pit in quest of the titular beast, which once used to ferry your insignificant folk around the world. I guess Giblets are sort of the punching bags of this game's world, so finding the slug giraffe is going to get you major props and help the other giblets tremendously if you survive. That's what's on the prize pile so far. So here we go, crack my knuckles here. How to win these charming games, rules and conditions. 1. So I buried a secret word in the Track of the Week segment of this episode. When you hear it, put it in the subject line of an email to chief.rocka, that's chief.rocka at breakupgamingsociety.com. Bam, you are entered. 2. On April 1st, I will draw a winner from the people who followed the rules in step 1. And just as a note here, none of these creators had any hand in this promotion, nor have I received any compensation for featuring their work. There's one thing they did wrong. It was making something interesting in the line of sight of a derelict with a microphone and an extra $10 in his pocket. Again, keep an ear out for that secret word in Track of the Week. So over on my digital life and my activities on Board Game Arena real quick, couple reports from that corner. The obsessive and self-destructive faraway play continues. When I first started writing this segment, I was savoring a 254 ELO rating at Faraway, which was my number 1 light game of 2025. I still play several games a day in 1v1 arena mode and also have 2 tournament tables going at any given time. But this morning, I've just staunched the gaping ego wound of a morning-long losing streak and have crawled back to 150-something. I miss my 254. It felt like the right size jacket for me. I've invested a lot of time in playing and sensed I was a strong intermediate player, not as agile and computational as the mid-300 and up-ranked players, but still, I'm usually strong enough to beat the crap out of average or inexperienced players most of the time. But not in the middle of one of my weekly tailspins. God forbid you see me on the mornings where I crash, and this is where the switch flips from being a casual who just likes to play to someone who expects to do well. I became a different person and an uglier one. Sometimes you just tank, don't get the cards, miss an important play, post a strong mid-80s score and get beat by 3 points, then get awkward cards the next game and get trounced, then shoot the lights out the game after that but lose on a tiebreaker, all in one series. Then the misfortune compounds because I start playing even more games and I'm playing mad. I begin the game by yelling my demands at the cards. Anger or fatigue take over, and then there I am, my ELO now well south of 200 and still going back for more. It reminds me of when I was in a pool league in the 90s. I shot good enough stick to consistently beat the other C-ranked players, but then I'd get ranked up into the stronger Bs, get schooled and downgraded, go back to beat up on the Cs, get my B rank back, etc., etc. Now here I am again with my faraway ranking in the toilet, screaming about how my opponent's mother defecates from the wrong hole and mimicking what I think they look like when they're drawing a card. I find myself wishing I could reach through the internet and palm strike them in the face right as they commit to a bite of a large and expensive sandwich. I generate portmanteaus and neologisms that you would only otherwise hear in the day room of a child psychiatric facility on the day they got everybody's dosage wrong. David from the Dude Take Your Turn blog, who turned me on to Faraway, has also offered to show me Targi, which he enjoys on the platform. I think that might be healthier than mainlining an hour of volcanic rage every morning of the week. Better news, same platform. Happy surprise on Board Game Arena was getting to play the beta version of Pyrotechnics with the publisher of the game, Jason Katzwinkle. I reviewed the copy of my physical prototype back in September, but that was based on several test plays where I made my own crude bot to simulate what another player in this 2-player game would do. In Pyrotechnics, you're racing against one other player to be the first to get rid of your hand of cards. You do this by building up the correct token set required to set off the firework display listed on a card in your hand. But in just a few minutes, this gets very crunchy because the way you build the token supply you need to display a card is lashed to a drive belt of tough resource exchange moves that force you to constantly hand potential opportunities to your opponent. It's a dense, muscular little puzzle that moves to resolution at frightening speed.
Hey, wait a minute, I just set my blanket up and it took me 40 minutes to park. What do you mean it's over?
By our second game, which I won somehow, I was already getting surges of anxiety when Jason got rid of a card. I got wrapped all the way around the axle when I was trying to calculate ways to get spark tokens without giving Jason something he wanted. The endgame duels, as both players get down to their last couple of cards, can get very thinky. Designer Michael Sprague put a lot of boom into a very short game here. That's pyrotechnics. Look for it on Board Game Arena if you like two-player resource duels that explode your brain very soon after the fuse is lit. To finish out Game of the Week, I'm going to continue my look back at Fantasy Flight games that made a huge impact on our house in the 2010s. Let's set up the next game this way. My stepson and I were both into Warhammer 40,000 lore, and we had a great time with Space Hulk Death Angel. That was the Fantasy Flight title that started it all for our house. The next logical move felt like getting into the boondoggle of the Warhammer tabletop miniature version together, except it didn't work. I got him one of the starter sets. I think it was Black Reach. I hung around, kind of tried to take notes while he ran a few skirmishes with one of his high school buddies, and after that, he and I spent a night throwing unpainted orcs and ultramarines at each other. I loved the idea of joining the ranks of people who got deeply into these battles, but midway through our first match, I realized I just didn't want to do this. The motion and detail I craved were mediated by a mechanical framework that left me cold on contact. In trying to learn about the game, I ended up starting wrong-headed arguments with active players on Reddit about why the system didn't do what I wanted it to do. I think one of the mods of a Warhammer subreddit at the time said it best. Dude, just go play something else. So we did. That something else was Tannhäuser, a 5-on-5 squad combat game that takes place in 1949. But not our 1949. In this universe, World War I turned into such an ugly grind that it is still unsettled in the 1940s. So you've got the uniform and weapon aesthetics of World War II, except the Germans are physically manifesting demonic influence and the Union forces tote experimental energy weapons around. Fantasy Flight did a lot of acquisitions around this time, buying up old games and lavishing them with reworked rules and insane production upgrades. The character tower portrait on the front of the Tannhäuser box immediately signaled the action and its time-displaced setting. World War II, but not quite. The sci-fi comic book gleam wafting off every character portrait, every inch of the woven fiber box, the tone of the character mats and the rulebook. This wasn't Warhammer, but the scope of action and theme were an easy sell. The ruthless, demonic relic hunters of the Kaiser's elite Obscura Corps and the Union's 42nd Special Marine Forces have converged on a Central European castle. The Krauts want to lock down a cornerstone relic that will help them bend this universe to their will for keeps. The Marines got to stop them. Now, the action can take place on the main floor or basement of the castle on either of the two-sided board side, which is also beautiful. Of the 5 fighters on each team, 3 are heroes and 2 are utility squaddies, each of whom have their own player board and customizable gear. The minis are even painted right out of the box. It was immediately engrossing in its scale and visual appeal, and while I enjoyed the relief of not having a couple dozen minis to think about, there was still lots of juice and variety. I mean, there were details in combat like rushing somebody physically, Overwatch, and initiative, together with the combinations of the characters, gear, and missions. Felt like the right balance of interesting crunch and manageable scope and sane cost. And as if the designers had read my mind, line of sight and targeting were intimate and slick. The game had a pathfinder system that used tracks of colored circles from room to room. Share a color with an enemy, you can hit them, and vice versa. The game offered several modes, from deathmatch to King of the Hill to story mode, and on top of that, a bunch of back-of-the-book scenarios, like ones where you go to run around the basement trying to unlock or defuse bombs while being under fire. The rulebook had pictures of minis and characters the base box didn't even have. I started wondering how big that this universe was. Who is Arishka Voronin, and why can't I use her RUR cognitive module? That's because she came with a separate Operation Novgorod set, which introduced the Russians under the rule of the matriarchy. The resurgent Japanese shogunate also had squads. There were standalone mercenary figures with their own rules and gear. 3 Tannhäuser novels were commissioned and printed. With the level of production and commitment to material, it felt like Fantasy Flight was going for a franchise here, but I quickly got the sense that not many other people were pushing these characters around a map with us. Just didn't feel like it was catching at all. For a time, it felt like a beautiful secret island that only the kid and I knew about. Was it balanced? I don't know. Was it good? It could have been. Was I good at it? Absolutely not, but stepson and I played enough death matches on the castle's main floor to train me out of my random setup and foolish opening moves. You see, the Germans have to pile down a staircase to enter the main floor, while the Union commandos bust in the front door and quickly disperse through their choice of rooms. My stepson was a daredevil, on and off the board, while I was enjoying the toy soldiers' buildup of having my little parade in through those stairs. His favorite tactic was to rush his explosive specialist, Talia Aponi, as far as he could and chuck her TNT at me while my Reich squad was still bunched around those stairs. Now, in this 5-on-5 game, parity is huge. After the boys' loud welcome present, I often started those matches down a character or two, with the remaining wounded ready to be swarmed and polished off by Officer John McNeil and his crew. I think he crippled me our first 3 games in a row with this no-nonsense tactic, but I spent some more time reading about the German kit and made sure that the Obscura Corps commander, the occult-powered but physically frail Hermann von Heisinger, always brought along his Hermetica Occulta. This was a magical text that makes Union soldiers win a mental duel with Heisinger before they can enter any path he's on. They usually don't, which gives Heisinger's team a lot of protection and maneuvering room that I never had before. I had started to close the gap between me and this aggressive youngster. Not long after that, we had a game where I used Heisinger's psychic buffer to corner, walk down, and eliminate the Union squad one by one with my team's close combat specialists. It was a rush to see it work. A lot of successful D10s were flying. I had 4 people left to Zeke's 1, and that was the heavy weapons specialist, Barry. He logically backed Barry into a corner and made me come to him, keeping himself alive just long enough with his 1 medkit to vaporize my team one by one as they darted in and out, trying to roll the killing blow. The boy even made up a theme song for Barry, which he sang as he merrily downed my team. I lost it that morning. I remember screaming, "This is bullshit," and storming down the hall and into me and my wife's room. I'd forgotten that games chosen by your inner 12-year-old might be processed by that same being. But the detail and tactical richness of Tannhäuser, especially once I got a couple mercenary figures and the Operation Novgorod set, went largely unexplored. When the kid got his first car his junior year, he became only a notional resident of the house, and our other friends had gelled around other games. I keep the game still. Well, for one, I need to photograph it again. Second, it's just too beautiful an artifact to let go. I have no hopes of playing it again, but it's one of the memories that I want to have physical form. Sometimes a game box is an autotelic window into a kingdom all its own, inhabiting the same display case as that perfect song that came up late one night whose perfection and wholeness in the moment would never bear translation. A game box is a memory, but it's also an artifact of vague possibility that sustains in a quiet way, even if you know all those fighters won't tangle again. So Tannhäuser is going to travel with me for the next convulsion of my life. It's still unique among all games I've played for providing a pocket universe that was not only a well-realized tactical dojo, but a fountain of indelible high-production B-movie action climaxes with all their pleasantly mediated desperation, electrifying turns, and rib-shaking mishaps. Chaos in the Old World was the next seminal fantasy flight experience that landed on our table, and what a galvanizing thing that turned out to be. That'll get covered in the next installment, but right now it's time for Track of the Week, and the keyword you need to enter the contest.
Bitch, I kicked it, yup, I kicked it, come on, you couldn't bang with this if your name was Genghis Khan.
I still return to Death in Vegas's 1997 LP, Dead Elvis. The album's kind of a sketchbook of electronic styles of the time, like they were playing around at a high level of skill to bear testament to the era or figure out what they were really interested in, or maybe just to prove to other producers that anything they specialized in, Death in Vegas could do just as well. Because of my tastes at the time, I bought the album so that I could play a particular track to death. It was called Dirt. I still love Dirt's splicing of contemporary techno effects and rhythm to the driving, spacey, and dirty psychedelic music festival vibe in this track. One of the layering passages that makes it go, and which kept it in rotation, was the simple classic addition of a repeated hip-hop vocal sample. Capping a build this way is always a nice trick for getting that balance of necessary repetition and perceived forward motion. It's still an extra little thrill for me when it builds up to the sample. As the years went past, I started spending more time with the rest of the album, absorbing what they were up to here without just seeking the big beat high of Dirt. If you like electronic music of the 90s generally, take a trip through this. It has a wide range of textures, styles, and moods. Its lack of focus is its strength. During these repeat visits, the track Wreck It became my favorite. It's absolutely beautiful. During these same years, I was also re-educating myself on hip-hop by following YouTube's music suggestions to some interesting cul-de-sacs. And I shouted one morning when I placed it. That vocal sample was Roxanne Shanté from her track, Big Mama. Big Mama was the third track on The Bitch Is Back, listed as her second and last album in 1992. Now, nowadays, she's properly revered as a groundbreaker first lady of hip-hop who was at the epicenter of some of the East Coast's and hip-hop's most pivotal moments. Netflix even did a biopic about her a few years back, and everybody acknowledges the years when, only 14, she connected with upcoming production legend Marley Marl, who also lived in the Queensbridge housing projects and became a member of the legendary Juice Crew. The Roxanne Wars that started with her response to a UTFO track set off hip-hop's first large-scale diss track frenzy. Even crews that had nothing to do with it were pumping out Roxanne records. She also figured prominently in the Bridge Wars when the Juice Crew got sideways with the Bronx, whose war shaman was, at the time, a young KRS-One. Shanté didn't care. She went right at him. But all that was in the mid-late 80s. This was 1992, and Big Mama feels like Shanté's already fighting for recognition here. So she goes down swinging by going after other female rappers en masse after opening with her credentials in the opening verse. In the first verse, she's already leaning pretty hard on that 80s resume.
One hit, your head split, throat slit, think you miss it, but I started this shit. At 14 years old, I was going gold. While I was on tour, you was touring the whole stroke. Sucking dicks and turning tricks to get a quick fix while I was putting dope hits in the mix. Ripping shows with Kane and Bismarcky, fucking up Roxanne and taking out Spark. Niggas came in flocks from blocks and blocks to watch the rocks knock bitches out the box. And every place.
Then she turns her attention to Queen Latifah and Moni Love, who had a huge breakout with their Ladies First collaboration. This did not escape Shanté's notice, and she goes into a little detail on that one.
Y'all hoes are phony. Try to get flippin', I'ma rip you and your girl Moni. You're illegitimate, trying to get a little bit, and I'm about sick of that Moni in the middle shit. Your album cold garbage. Had one good jam, now you think you a star, bitch.
Then she turns her lyrical guns on MC Lyte.
Cause in a beef I don't sleep or lollygag. Sending your hands off stage in a body bag. Cause Shanté is a rebel. You say your light is a rock, you get crushed like a pebble.
And just to round things out geographically, she pivots finally to Yo-Yo, the female member of Ice Cube's Lynch Mob, basically calling her an overweight slut, among other things. This is when you get the sample that Death in Vegas used.
Brain, and stop your ass down at Jack LaLanne. You better hurry and hop on a diet plan and keep the pork chops out the frying pan. Yeah, I said it, so what? You roll up slut, you get a fucking gun buck to your gut.
I never traced what, if anything, the fallout from this record was, but it has yielded the secret word for the game giveaway, which is Queensbridge, Queensbridge. That is the winning word. So if you want into the contest, put that word in the subject line of an email and send it to chief, CHIEF, .rocka, ROCKA, at breakupgamingsociety.com. Now, if you want to use the body area of the email to talk board games or hip-hop, we can do that. But that subject line is your entry to win all the indie games I talked about in this episode's Games of the Week. That's Queensbridge in the subject line in an email to me sometime before the end of March. The winner gets drawn at the end of that month and announced on April 1st. So ends episode 110. Thank you for taking this ride with me. Quick look forward and what's going on now. I'm still working with SETI. We're trying to. Also, Final Girl Knock at the Door is still in wrap. The Dwelling Solo Journaling RPG I'm working on needs another chapter. And I actually got to play a session of Ninja Borg RPG with the guys who made it. I previewed that last episode in a talk with Walt, and I whined enough where those two stop their busy lives on a Saturday long enough to play with me. I've got it recorded. It's a lot of audio. You're going to get that too in the future. Oh, God, I just forgot. I still have lots of audio from my talk with board game reviewer Matt Thrower about Fantasy Flight Games Golden Age. He had a lot more to say on that, and it was really insightful. I'll be releasing and refining more of this over the remainder of February, so keep an eye out and an ear out as I get to it. If you need me, I'll be down at my third space, a local Walmart, sifting through marked-down Valentine's chocolate and giving snappy speeches to the self-checkout camera that always shows me my face when I'm just trying to buy shit. Till then, I remain your host and friend, the Colonel Hector Bravado from Starkville, Colorado. May you fight long and well.